Welcome to Small Business Rally Point for Monday, August 23rd. Now, this is a meeting for small business owners hosted by the Idea Collective. We are a select group of driven small business owners, and we all kind of get it. When we collaborate, we're going to go further together than if we try and take the world on by ourselves. We're committed to help one another, and because of that, we feel like we have an unfair advantage in the market, and it's a really great place to be if you're an entrepreneur. We'd love to tell you more about it if you're interested. I'm the founder of the Idea Collective and your host for today, Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. So I've been looking forward to today's conversation for so long because I'm kind of curious about how things work and how people are doing. Obviously, we want to see all small businesses succeed, and one of the most unique sectors of small business is the restaurant industry. So we thought, how are they doing? What is going on? So we're bringing in the big guns, Kristine Hillmer, the president and CEO of the Wisconsin Restaurant Association, to answer our questions and give us the lowdown on the industry. One other thing before we get going, we have not one, we have two speaker announcements for the Idea Collective Retreat. That's our retreat happening in November, headlined by Mel Robbins and Jesse Cole at the Grand Geneva Resort. We'll give you more information on that later in the show. All right. As always, the show is presented by Bank 59, Quick Trip, and Serendipity Labs. Without them, none of this would be possible. And of course, it wouldn't be possible without you watching and interacting with the show. As always, we welcome your questions for Kristine and also your comments and sarcastic remarks, because that's what makes it fun. Our guest today is Kristine Hillmer, the president and CEO of the Wisconsin Restaurant Association and Wisconsin Restaurant Association Education Foundation Board of Directors. Kristine, hello, has an MBA and has held certified association executive credentials for 23 years and more than 27 years of experience working with associations, including both trade and professional societies. So I'm curious. I cannot wait to talk to you. Kristine, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Any opportunity I have to talk about restaurants and tell our story is most welcome to me.
Well, it's great because I've got a zillion questions, and I know the folks in the chat room will have them as well. But we really want to see restaurants succeed. So we need to know, just in general, how are Wisconsin restaurants doing right now?
Right now, it's really cloudy, I have to be honest, whether or not we're going to be able to serve a lot of our small businesses and restaurants are going to be able to survive. We made it through the initial pandemic. We had PPP funds, we had restaurant revitalization funds. We can get into more details later. But between staffing shortage, needing multi-years to recover, and now the Delta variant and the uneasiness, it's really going to be unclear on how restaurants are going to be doing moving forward. I have hot off the presses, I've got some interesting consumer survey data from the National Restaurant Association. So these are national numbers. With the Delta variant going on right now, 19% of adults have stopped going to restaurants, while 9% have canceled existing plans to go out to a restaurant in recent weeks. And 37% of adults say they've ordered takeout or delivery instead of going out to a restaurant, while 19 say they choose to sit outside instead of inside in restaurants. And of course, we've got beautiful weather in the summer right now, but as outdoor dining is just not going to be possible, guess what? We have winter here in Wisconsin. It's going to make it really, really difficult. And then add to that, you've got staffing shortages, you've got supply shortages, you got, even if you can get supplies, those supply prices are going up. You have to recover from the pandemic. It's going to be really tough in the next couple of years.
How long do you think this will take to get back to pre-pandemic levels? You say it's going to take a long time. Do you really have a forecast for how long it's really going to reverberate through the system?
The latest economic data we have indicates that restaurants will not fully recover until 2024. And that's before we talk about Delta variant. And it's before we start talking about Lambda variant, which is on the heels of Delta coming in through the borders. So, and what we mean by that when we say recovery, you have to remember that a restaurant business model has on average a 3 to 5% profit margin. So putting it in real terms, 95 to 97 cents of every dollar that comes into a restaurant is already spoken for in terms of supply prices, overhead, lights, natural gas, your staffing costs. So that's your profit margin, and that's pre-pandemic. So add into the pandemic when you have shut down indoor dining or you've got capacity limits, that the big hole that was dug during that time, digging out of that hole and recovering, and then you have to layer onto that increased staffing cost if you can even find staff and you're not even open all your hours or even the meals that you're looking at. I think 2024 is actually a very conservative. I think it's going to be longer.
With all of these dark clouds on the horizon, it's not a very pretty picture.
Nope.
I have questions about all the individual things you just mentioned. But before I get into it, the thing that's really bugging me, and I don't really know how to articulate this, so I'm just going to say it. With all the things that someone could go do as a small business, why would someone go in and open a restaurant? Who's the type of entrepreneur that says, I'm going to open a restaurant? Because if the margin is that thin and any one of these hiccups can really screw up your business plan, tell me about the entrepreneurs that go into the restaurant business and succeed. What makes them tick?
Well, there's something that we call internally that I think when you talk to a restaurateur, you will recognize, and it's the hospitality heart. And it's people who love to serve. It's people who love people and love providing that great culinary experience and showcasing all of that. That really is one of those elements that not everybody has. You also have to know that there are a lot of restaurants that is very familial. And you've got multiple generations where maybe grandpa and grandma started it in, say, 60s or 70s, and the second generation took it over, and now their kids are into the business as well. There's a lot of families that own a business together in a lot of independent restaurants. So that's what you'll see as well. But it's a hospitality heart, and it's those people pleasers and those people that just love serving. Those are the people that are really attracted to becoming a restaurateur and working within the industry.
Does that make this interruption even more damaging because they feel that way about serving people and now they can't? Does it make it tougher for them because of the types of people that they are?
It really is tough. I don't know a restaurateur who isn't sad that they can't give the ultimate customer service within the restaurant. But with staffing and shortages and supply prices, but having to make some really difficult decisions. And some of that might harm the hospitality heart, but they are bending over backwards and they're doing everything they can because they want you, when you go into their restaurant, have a phenomenal experience. Get great tasting food at a reasonable price and be served and have that interaction and really have that restaurant experience. They're doing everything they can to provide that to you. And it's really, really difficult right now.
One of the things that comes to mind about the pandemic would be the fact that they have a place where people come in and sit with one another, which means they have to have a pretty clear point of view on proof of vaccination, masks, no masks. Some people don't even want to talk about it. They're going to blaze your online reviews if you say something they don't like. Like, it's a really volatile situation right now for someone to host a public space. So are they asking you at the association level, what should we do? Are you observing what's working and what's not? What is it like to do that right now?
You're absolutely right. It is a very volatile situation, and the restaurateur and their staff feel really in the middle of it. You've got some that come in and say, why aren't you masking everybody? Why aren't you doing X, Y, Z? Because of course they read it on social media and that's what you're supposed to do. And then you've got others who are also reading on social media, well, masks aren't necessary and they don't work and this and that. It's a really tough position because everybody's come into your business and they're the expert on how you should be running it, rather than really saying, how can we help support you as a small business owner in what you're doing? You also have to know that during the pandemic, restaurants really heavily invested. They spent a lot of capital to make things safe within their restaurant, but to some people it's not enough, in other people it's too much, and they come in and they question everything. And unfortunately, the people who are in the front lines tend to be the hostess and the server, and they're the ones that are the frontline workers, and they're getting the brunt of it. So it's really a difficult situation. Now, I can also tell you that as many of those that question and really have a hard time and give everybody, a lot of grief, we've got a lot of people who are coming and saying, we want to support you. We want to see you succeed. We want you at the end of this to be in our community, because there isn't a community that is thriving without restaurants. And communities work really hard to bring them in. And so they know restaurants are a place where people gather together. It's a place where you celebrate. It's where you mourn. It's where you get the latest gossip. It's where busy families get together around a table. Sometimes it's not always possible to do it at home. So if you lose that in your community, you have lost a great deal of bandwidth and interaction. And restaurants also do good in the community. They host fundraisers. They do a lot of things to help support a lot of the other things that make your communities really special. So it's really important for restaurants to survive. And so when those customers come in, wrapping back to your question, that want to come in and want to be supportive and want to make sure you succeed, that's what's so heartening. And that's what lifts that hospitality heart, because when our restaurateurs hear that, that's what makes it all worthwhile.
And their staffs usually have that hospitality heart as well. And many of them are working double time right now because staffing shortages are everywhere. That's also affecting the restaurant industry, isn't it?
It absolutely. So a couple of statistics. When, and this is between pre-pandemic and post, statewide, the state of Wisconsin, we have lost 22% of our workforce through the pandemic. And those are Department of Tourism numbers. In Dane County alone, and it was the county that had the most restrictions, we've lost 44% of our hospitality. So we went into the pandemic with a workforce shortage. We lost a lot of valuable staff because other industries were still hiring, manufacturing, retail, healthcare, they were hiring. And so whether or not we get that 22% back is really questionable. So we were shorthanded to begin with. Now we're really shorthanded. And that's forcing a lot of restaurant owners to make some very difficult decisions. So what you're seeing is many restaurants are not open on Mondays, as an example, or maybe they're closed Monday and Tuesday, or Monday or Sunday, Monday, or Monday, Tuesday, because those are the slowest days. Or you also may see a restaurant who may be used to having a breakfast, lunch, and a dinner mealtime. They might just be open at dinner time, because they have to manage all of that on the staff that they have. And if they don't have the staff, and their staff is absolutely, as you say, Pat, they are working double time. Instead of doing maybe 5 tables, they might be doing 10. You may be used to having 7 people in the kitchen, and maybe they have 4. So they're having to work really hard, and restaurateurs can't afford to burn out their staff at an accelerated rate. So they're having to make those difficult decisions on what days they're open, what services are over. And that's why you're seeing that there's not all the restaurants that are open the hours that you normally would have seen pre-pandemic.
With margins as narrow as you mentioned, what percentage of restaurants that are open right now are trying to minimize how much they're losing and not even turning a profit? They're just trying to survive. Out of 100%, what percentage are just, they know they're going to lose money, but they're trying to lose as little as possible so they can keep the business afloat?
A lot of them. I would say over a majority of them, and it's not sustainable. As you know, a small business is not in existence to lose money, and that is only sustainable for a short period of time. Now, we do know during the pandemic, restaurants did have some funding opportunities, as most everybody did, and that's your PPP first draw and second draw, as well as EIDL loans and employee retention tax credit, all those different tools. Restaurants did have an additional, it's called the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, the RRF, that they did have available to them. Now, I say that with a caution, because we know that Congress funded $28.6 billion, which is a tremendous amount of money. I don't want to look that gift horse in a mouth, but when the need and the applications for that program was $70 billion, nationally, as well as in the state of Wisconsin, only 1/3 got the funding they needed. So 2/3 did not. And so there's a lot of restaurants that are now really looking at, okay, how was our summer? Did we make enough to carry us through? Because in most restaurants, summer is the critical time to make their profit, because that's going to carry them through into the lean winter months. And most restaurants, it's a little leaner during the winter and you can't have outdoor dining. So that's where they're going to have to really be making some hard decisions this fall and into the winter. Can we survive? And especially, as you said, Pat, a lot of them are losing money, and it's just how much in the red they are. We believe that we've lost 10 to 15% already of our restaurants, and we fear that more will be lost as we go into the winter. It's not an easy situation for sure.
No, not at all. We're talking with Kristine Hillmer from the Wisconsin Restaurant Association. And if you have a question for Kristine, drop it in the chat. We'd love to include you in the conversation. I want to step away from the pandemic, kind of, because something I'm curious about, and I think I read this someplace, but you're the person that would know, through the pandemic, delivery took off. People kept on eating restaurant food. It was just being delivered to them. So I've heard rumors that Grubhub and DoorDash and the like might not be the best thing really for restaurants. Can you explain what that's all about?
I'd be happy to. So big picture, pre-pandemic, curbside pickup and delivery were absolutely a trend that was happening. The pandemic didn't create it, but what it did is it accelerated it as a trend. And most restaurants, and I'm going to say most, not all, really did a pretty good job pivoting and adding it to their arsenal, because restaurants had to be very creative on what they did during the pandemic in order to survive. And delivery in and of itself is not bad. But there are some companies that their practice was to help out the restaurant. They would put their logo, their menu, their brand on their website and not have a relationship back with the restaurant. And so what happened was that menu could have been old. The menu may not have been correct. The pricing may have been different. And so by going directly to the third-party app, you bypass the ability of the restaurant to control their own destiny and what's on their menu and their pricing and so on. And unfortunately, when there are problems such as we don't make that anymore, we don't have the ingredients to make it, or we ran out of the particular, salad or whatever it was. Well, they had no way to get back in touch with that consumer because there was a middleman who inserted themselves in. Now, there are a lot of restaurants who have a relationship with some of these third party, and that's why I'm saying it's not all bad. But the restaurant needs to be in control of that. It can't be somebody inserting themselves in between the customer and the restaurant. They need to agree to have that middleman. And a lot of them have done that, but not all. And that's one of the things that we have been fighting, that, there needs to be a contract. There needs to be a relationship. You can't just willy-nilly do it. Because what happens is when there was a problem or maybe they didn't have exactly what they wanted or it was late or whatever, then you get mad at the third-party delivery system. You get mad at the restaurant. And the restaurant then gets the nasty emails and they get the calls and so on, and they weren't in control of it. I know of restaurants who tried to get their menus off of these third-party sites. It would take them weeks and weeks and weeks, renting attorneys. It would get off. Next week, it's back on. So it's just an unfortunate thing. Now, moving forward, delivery and curbside is here to stay. But we need to do it in a way that also supports both the restaurant, third party, as well as the consumer. So there needs to be that relationship. We know that everybody wants to have that great restaurant quality meal in their couch, watching their favorite streaming service. That is the trend of the future. And so restaurants need to embrace that and need to do it in a way that's help support their business. The other thing we need to understand, though, is not every restaurant concept actually has products and their meals are very are good for delivery. For instance, if I want a favorite steak from one of my favorite steakhouses or a great fish dish, more of those fine dining, that doesn't travel very well. So restaurants need to also be able to say, we're not delivering. That you either need to come to our restaurant, and that should be okay. And so again, delivery and curbside has been really helpful during the pandemic. And to give you another number, the statistic I heard is Curbside and delivery did help a lot of restaurants survive, but it only backfilled 30% of the lost seats in a restaurant. And then when you have to then balance, you've got delivery drivers coming in, you've got all of those meals, and then you've got inside dining. Do you have the staff to function and be able to feed that beast, if you will? It makes it a very challenging environment for the restaurateur, because they might be doing double duty in the kitchen because they've got delivery and they've got the inside dining. Well, sometimes balancing all that can be really difficult in terms of your staffing, as well as how much product you have on hand. And then, of course, producing that food in a timely manner so that it hopefully gets out the door and then delivered in a timely manner.
It's not a very good recipe when you think about the restaurant hesitancy that you stated, and the delivery fees and the way that the delivery companies work. The fact that people won't be able to eat outdoors in a few months, it's really going to be damaging. And one of the things that you mentioned about the delivery sites is that when things change in the restaurant, it may not change on the delivery site. And one of them is brought up by Ann Rakowicki inside the chat. She runs the Marketing Kitchen, an agency for restaurants. And one of those things is pricing. When prices change and it's not updated on the site, what are you seeing with food pricing right now on the table? And how are they dealing with that with these delivery sites?
So most restaurants have been, to this point, pretty much able to pretty much keep their prices where they are. I don't think that's going to happen for too much longer. I think you are going to start seeing restaurant prices go up. Beef alone is up 47%. That's just beef, and that's not including the pork and you know, you've heard of the chicken wing shortage, and people are still wanting to have all those experiences, or they go into a restaurant and they expect, oh, everybody's good now. We're expecting everything to be the same as it was pre-pandemic, and that's not going to be the case. In addition to the looking at the restaurant hours and the meal services, restaurants are looking at their menus. What can they have on their menu based on what supplies they can get in, as well as the pricing, because Wisconsinites are frugal. And I'm born and raised Wisconsin, gal. I am absolutely, I love a good deal. I love happy hour. I'm frugal too. But when it comes time to be able to pay your bills, restaurants are going to have to raise their prices to cover themselves, as well as the increase in their staffing that they're seeing, because in order to find somebody, they have to pay more and more and more. I did see, I'm not really watching the chat too much, but I am, two things. One was about coupons and so on. Less and less restaurants are doing that. You know, the buy one, get one free, or the happy hours, because they can't survive on that. And I saw one comment about our restaurant sitting on a lot of cash because of all the help they had. So again, I go back to what I was saying before, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and that was that pool of money just specifically for restaurants. Only 1/3 got funding. So 2/3 did not. I know of very few restaurants that have any PPP funding whatsoever. That's pretty much gone. And if they had employee retention tax credit in the transportation bill, that is actually, it was supposed to go through the end of the year. And now the proposal is to allow, I think it's going to be through the end of September. So restaurants are really out of brink. And I know of very few restaurants who are sitting on a big pile of cash. I mean, can I say never? No, I can't say that. Have there been restaurants that have flourished and done very well during this pandemic? Absolutely. Those are the exceptions rather than the rules, though.
Question from Susie Moon. She asks, are most restaurants discontinuing buffet style service? Is that a thing of the past?
Well, one of the reasons why we saw buffets going away was because of people touching the utensils and serving, and then that's a source of contamination and so on. Some have brought it back, and there are some business models that's how they do their business model. They don't have service necessarily, they have a buffet model. So I think that I think you are going to continue to have some buffets, but there's also a concern about all you can eat and food waste, and are you really paying for your the food that you're taking, and so on. So I'm not sure that it's going to be a model that most people are going to be adopting. Some will be retaining, but whether or not it's going to be staying for others that have done it in the past, I'm not really quite sure.
So we're almost out of time. We
Mhm.
limit the conversation to about a half hour, but this is such an interesting topic and so timely. And obviously, there are a lot of questions. But I want to give you the final word. Is there anything that we can do as small business owners to support small business owners that happen to be restaurateurs? Is there anything we can do either as consumers or as small business owners to help them get through the next couple of years?
Absolutely. Well, the first is go out and eat. Because even when there was capacity limits, there were still open tables and chairs for you to go out and dine. And if you know that your particular restaurant is busy at a certain time, maybe consider going at a time that isn't as busy. So maybe they're open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. So maybe try going on a Wednesday night instead of just the Friday night fish fry. Try to go to an alternative time. Certainly curbside and delivery are still an option to go. But even beyond that, what my plea is for everybody to have some kindness and some understanding when you go into a restaurant. It has been a really tough 18 months. It is not done whatsoever. So when you go in there, please be understanding why maybe that table is empty, even though you want to eat now, and well, why can't I sit there? Well, they may not be sitting you at that table because they don't have staff for it, and they still want you to have a great experience. Or questioning, well, why are you making me wear a mask? Well, here in Dane County, we have a mask mandate now. So just don't argue. And, maybe look on their website if you're wondering what protocols are in place. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you want to go to a restaurant who is having their staff wear a mask, go to their website or give them a call. Certainly, I think there's space for people who want to be protected and not want to be protected. Yes, Jennifer, that is absolutely right. Just try not to go in and be difficult. They're doing their best to give you great service and really give you great restaurant quality food, and they want you to be there. But when people go in and make it really difficult, it's just hard all around, and that's when they also lose staff. So just try very hard to go in and have that great experience, celebrate restaurants, go visit them, maybe buy gift certificates for clients or visit on some off times. There's lots of ways to support a restaurant, but the biggest one is to A, go and eat, and B, when you go there, please be kind and understanding. And if it's a restaurant that does do tipping, tip well. That's really helpful too.
This has been a great interview. Thank you for all of the information. And I hope we can have you on again sometime in a few months so we can check in on your members and how they're doing. Kristine Hillmer, President and CEO of the Wisconsin Restaurant Association. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. And one thing we can do for them is to create a vibrant small business community that they can be a part of. And a lot of folks are going to get introduced to it at the Idea Collective Retreat happening in early November at the Grand Geneva Resort. And I'm so excited because today we get to announce 2 additional speakers that are going to be on stage at the retreat. So, November 5th through the 7th, 3-day retreat for small business owners, anchored by Mel Robbins, our live virtual keynote speaker, and Jesse Cole, the owner of the Savannah Bananas, the promotions king of America. He was on ESPN all weekend, by the way, in case you were curious. They did a 6-minute profile on the team and how he is changing the game of baseball. Those are our keynotes. But today we're rolling out 2 additional speakers on stage, and I'm excited to share them. So let's click the share button and do the sharing. The first speaker that we're going to announce is Yinka Iwula from Kala Success Systems. Now, Yinka is someone that I've seen speak, and she is brilliant is an understatement. She's a business strategist, a trainer, and a dynamic transformation coach based in London. And her talk is called Your Most Impactful Habits, the Way You Use Your Mind. It's 20 minutes, and it's a talk on mindset and productivity. And I saw her speak in another group about 6 months ago, and I literally chased her down to get her into our group and eventually on stage at the Idea Collective Retreat. She is a complete fresh breath of fresh air and very, very smart. I cannot wait to see her on stage at the retreat in November. And the other person that we're going to announce today just happens to be with us today. Lisa Rabel of Rebel Girl Marketing. Lisa's agency aligns your business goals with sales and marketing strategies that actually work. Now, Lisa's in the room, so we're going to bring Lisa up here. Where is Lisa? Lisa, hello. So I
Hello.
want to talk about your pitch and what you're doing. I don't want to steal your thunder, though. So what are you going to do for us in November?
Well, that's just it. We're going to be talking about your elevator pitch. So it's funny that Savannah Banana Guy is going to be on, because it's all going to be baseball references when it comes to understanding how a pitch relates to your business and it relates to your brand. So we're going to be talking about how having different kinds of pitches are really good for your different audiences, keeping people on their toes, all kinds of fun stuff like that. So it's not just about creating an elevator pitch, but why it's important, how you can use it in all of your marketing strategies, not just when you're networking, and how you can use it in social and any place else that you're hanging out. So
one of the things I love about your presentation is that it's a workshop. It's interactive. You say, bring a pen and pencil, because we're not just going to listen to you show our PowerPoint. We're actually going to do work, right?
yeah, and don't tell anybody, but I'm going to have some voluntold come up on stage with me, so to help on their pitch. So if I know Pat has experienced this himself, so
Yes.
But it's a great way for people to like see it happening to other people, instead of me just pontificating about like what you should be doing, not to shit on anybody, but it's a great way for people to go see how they can transform an old pitch into a new pitch that is more powerful and makes much more of a statement.
What's neat is that Lisa's presentation is going to be a part of an entire morning on Saturday morning. It's Marketing Morning, presented by the American Marketing Association of Milwaukee. It's going to include Jesse Cole. It's going to include Lisa and several other marketing presenters. So Saturday morning is going to be all about marketing. And then Saturday afternoon is going to be all about mindset. That will include Yinka, and it will include Mel Robbins. Maybe you've heard of her. So it's going to be a tremendous event. If you're not quite up to speed on the retreat, these two speakers are being added to Mel, Jesse, 7 additional presenters, 5 discussion circles, 2 panels, a goal-setting workshop, and more. We had our first pre-con event last week, and when I was done, my cheeks hurt from laughing and smiling so hard. So if you're thinking about, maybe I should come to the Idea Collective retreat, you really need to get on this. The website is smallbizretreat.com. And Kristine, it would be an honor to share this information with you and your restaurant members, because I think that some of them might get a lot out of this retreat, where we're talking all about business operations and mindset and productivity and sales and customer service. It's going to be a really terrific event, and we hope that we can see you there. All right. So what else do we have to share today? Oh, that free year inside the Idea Collective community, thanks to our friends at Bank 59. Their generous support helps this community happen. If you become a banking customer of Bank 59, you will get a free year inside the collaboration community. Find out more at bank59.com/Idea Collective. A big thank you to Kristine for coming on today, and to our sponsors, Bank 59, Quick Trip, and Serendipity Labs. I'm Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. Thanks for tuning in for Small Business Rally Point. We'll see you next week.